Did you know Mizuno made golf balls? Yeah, that's right, they do. Welcome back to the Golf Shop, and this is where we talk about club reviews, club fittings, club repairs. Also, your scores can go low. So if you would, hit that bell, like, subscribe, all that stuff so the channel can get promoted and go further. Mizuno. Mizuno is famously known for some really exciting, expert, any other nice adjective you want to throw out there, about irons. They make world-class irons, okay? Nobody doubts that ever. And they're starting to make a real big splash in the driver realm, and they are putting a lot of effort into that one. Well, a few years ago, they introduced a golf ball. Had no idea they had golf balls. Well, apparently they did until a few years ago. And they started out with what they had is the RB and the RBX. And this was their tour models. And they weren't very good. To me, they weren't very good. They were plasticky, they didn't hit very well, and I believe Mizuno knew it, and they took it to heart, and they went back to the design board, and both the USA and the Japan branch got together and did some serious engineering on some golf balls and have re-released the Mizuno RBX Tour and the Mizuno RBX Tour X. Okay, so now, well, what's the difference between them? Right? What's the difference between the Tour and the X ball? Well, they both have 272 dimples. They both have 3 layers. They both have butadiene cores. They both have urethane covers. So what in the heck's the difference? Well, if you go hunt and you go look at you would never know it by looking at the golf ball packs. You'd never know it if you just looked at the very beginning of the marketing on the website. However, a little deeper into the website, and there's a chart. And the only difference truly is the RBX Tour X is a bit firmer, all right, a bit firmer, and that's what they say. It's a bit firmer. Now, what's all that going to mean? Well, it talks about it being soft, the balls being soft. The difference is that the Tour is a low spin ball with the driver or a full swing shot, and the Tour X is a slightly higher spin ball. They both supposed to feel soft, both supposed to have high spin around the greens, although they all say that it has this, with wedge shots, that the pattern flattens out and comes back down, and everything else is pretty much the same, except for that one category. Now, again, the illustrations would lead you to believe something else, because the Tour is a nice white blue in the skin, where the Tour X is this white, orange, different kind of orange, and then the skin. I don't know if that's just the way that they designed it in the animation of it or not, but that's just what it is. So that's the expectations. Now, I've hit the previous models, and you already know what I think about that. We're going to hit these balls over again. Now, let's put this out before the review. Golf balls should come with a warning that says individual results may vary. Individual results may vary because the way that I hit a golf ball and the way I attack a golf ball, or the amount of miles per hour that I hit a golf ball, may not or will not be the same as you. Vauxhall on the website says that these golf balls are aimed at the young elite player. All right, young elite player. Well, I'm neither one of those, but we're going to test them anyway. So let's go see some. Alrighty, what we saw was it was a combination, right? We had the Tour ball, the RB Tour, and the RB Tour X. Now, the RB Tour is supposed to be the penetrating ball, where the Tour X is supposed to be the mid to high launch with a slightly higher spin rate, where the RB Tour had to have a slower spin rate. Now, that was on full swings. So we'll go from the green to the tee on this one. If we look here on the averages, the Tour X went 92.95, where the regular Tour went 88 to 90. Now, I was also hitting it a little bit farther, a little bit faster, and at about the same smash factor. Now, the thing that we really, when we're talking about wedges, one of the things we concern ourselves with is spin. Spin with the Tour ball actually was pretty high at 8,400, where this one was just shy of 8,100. So about a 300 RPM difference. Okay, both were considered to be straight and hit it pretty decent. You could see where the Tour ball felt a little softer, got you a little bit more spin, just as we expect. Now, if we go look at how they landed, and we look at it, and here they are. They're very, very close to one another. It's just that the X ball just looks like it's pushed a little forward than the green or the Tour, which is about what we're expecting. I think the pattern might be just a hair tighter for the Tour, but not by much. All right. So if we go back and we look at the 7-iron, we see that the machine gave the nod to the Tour X, and their averages are the same. So that means that somewhere along the lines, I've hit one a little bit further with that. So this one was a little bit more close in swing speed and very, very much identical in smash factor. And again, we see that the Tour ball spins about 200 RPM more than the X ball. Now, this is getting to be kind of a pattern here, which I think we would expect when we hear stuff about X balls. The flight was pretty decent, just like it was with a sand wedge. They're very, very comparable. And if we go back and look at this one again, that we find out that, it's a tight pattern either way. However, the Tour ball is a little bit more consistent. So I'm going to give the nod here probably towards the Tour ball. And here's the reason. This little dot right here is the reason why the X ball was on top, because of that. You can just see the consistency there. All right, now to the one that everybody wants to talk about is the driver. All right, the Tour X ball went 5 yards longer and 6 yards longer for carry and total, respectively. I hit them about the same. Again, I was about 2 miles an hour faster, which, if all things created equal, would end up being about the same. However, I am a little bit to the right in average versus being straight. Although it's telling me I'm hitting them straight, but all the things are pretty much equal. Now, as we're going to see, and we're going to review this one before we go back and look at our distribution, the X ball hit a little bit lower than the Tour ball. The X ball hit just a hair higher than the Tour ball, and then the X ball was a little bit lower than the Tour ball. This is the one that said it was going to be penetrating. And what we saw here was, with the driver, just under a half of a foot. With the 7-iron, basically inches difference. And then in the wedge, which the Tour ball went up maybe a foot and a half. All right, so back to the display. Now we look at this and we see the X ball. We see the X ball, we got it landing around here, some around here, and then I've got 2 laying off to the right. Where the Tour ball, again, shows its consistency right here with 1 laying out here. But you're giving up 5 yards. So that's really where you got to worry about it. And the 5 yards is probably coming from this. If you're looking at all that, I'd say they perform pretty doggone close. So if we wanted to see how this worked out from a driver tour, this is what it looks like when they're all being hit. Bit of a fan. And it comes down. All right. Then we go to the Tour X. And if you look at this, about as much of a fan, but a little bit more real, a little bit more towards the inside, more poles basically was what that was. If we look at the 7-iron for the Tour, for the tour ball. Very, very consistent. Very, I don't know what I was doing. I was just pulling the snot out of it right there. But we go to the X ball, and it was just a slightly bigger fan. And you get to see that both in the same spot, but again, the tour ball was a little bit more consistent. If we look at the sand wedge, and we go back here, sand wedge was nice and tight. We like that one. 4 out of the 5, just right there. You like that? It was just a distance control kind of thing. And then we go back to the Tour X, and we hit all those. The Tour X, one got loose, just like on the other one. And there they are. So overall, did they do what they said they would do? I would say I'd give them both about a 90%. But for me, what I'm looking at, am I willing to give up the distance in the driver for the consistency? And that's something that we'd all have to look and really, really take a hard look at what we're getting out of it. Personally, I'd say that the X ball went just as good, and I would pretty much go with the X ball. So let's see if we can't go back and talk about it some more. Okay, so that we saw. So the ball's quite surprisingly nice this time around. You don't get to hear the sound, but the sound is significantly different. And as golfers, we are very much sound-driven people. And it doesn't sound that plasticky sound. It doesn't have that plasticky feel anymore. It is a very solid golf ball. Both of them are, okay? Now, did one hit the high trajectory with the low spin and doing all that stuff that it said? No, not for me. Now, when we talk about golf balls, whenever I get in these conversations with golf balls, internally I am thinking that, well, one is low spin and then the other one's mid spin, and it's like this much difference. It's this huge, dramatic amount. 5,000 RPM, 1,000 RPM. Well, they're not, okay? And in this particular case, that's what we're seeing. I'm seeing differences of 300 RPM. Now, from is that the difference between backing one up and stopping it on a green? Or is that the difference between getting another yard or letting it run out a little bit more, or having a nice descent as it comes out of the air? Yeah, maybe, but we're talking fractions, right? Fractions. As an amateur golfer, you probably would never notice it. As an elite player, and we're talking about elite player, we're talking about the top like 1%. Yeah, that's a critical thing, all right? And you should be monitored for that, and you should be doing that. What we found out was with the wedges, they're pretty much about the same, and they both felt very, very good. I will say, though, that I did feel a slight firmness in the X ball when it went off. It was slightly longer, yes, but by a golf ball, okay? In the full swings, they were very hard to pick out, and as you saw, the tour ball was way more consistent at a yard or two shorter, maybe a few extras, but it was way more consistent. Then we get into the driver, and the X ball was 5 yards longer on average, right? On average, it was 5 yards longer, but I found myself more to my right. Now, that could be swing, could be a lot of things, but if you look at the landing area and we take out the two extremes, they're very similar again. However, the distance is there. So what comes out of this? They say that the tour ball, softer, lower spin, gets it out there. What I think is it feels really good. It's a very consistent golf ball. The X ball is supposed to be slightly higher, a little more spinny than the other one. I found it to be a good feeling golf ball as well, although you can tell in certain circumstances it's a slightly firmer golf ball. And it spun less, again, by a few hundreds of RPMs. At the level I'm playing, in real life play, I'm probably not seeing that. However, we're measuring it, and so there it is, right? So in the characteristics of both of them, they have the same kind of cover, they have the same number of dimples, they have the same kind of core, the same material, although I'm sure the durometers are a little bit different. Right, and so the reaction really shouldn't be too grossly different, and they're not. So did they turn out the way I thought after reviewing all the information on them? Yeah, they did. Some of the stuff may be a little reversed in what they're saying, but they both performed well. They both performed well for me. I hit them in numbers that I'm used to seeing. I'm hitting in spin rates that I'm used to seeing, and they're going the distances I'm used to seeing. So where 3 years ago, that was completely not the case. Now it is. Okay. So if you're going into the golf store, it's getting on that Christmas time and you're looking for a unique gift, maybe that would be the way to go. Find a Mizuno set of golf balls, either the RB or the RBX Tours, the RB Tours, RBX Tours, or Tour X, and try out a dozen of these golf balls, right? Just try them out. I don't think you're going to be disappointed based on the gamers, because I do get to see a lot of golf balls where I'm at, and these things can compare with them, all right? I think they're going to compare with them. They're new to the market, so it's probably going to be a hard breakthrough for them. But I think once you get a chance and you hit a few of them, you might be pleasantly surprised. All right, so if you got any questions, put them in that show note below and we'll try and answer them as much as we possibly can. And, join us on our live streams on Mondays, 5:30 p.m., 17:30 Eastern Time, where we talk about the same stuff. We can talk, it goes around the world. So it's a good time for an hour, a little hour and a half area, hour and 15 minutes. And as always, let's see your scores go low.